How do you feel about free speech overall? I mean, like the past year and a half, it seems like the Democratic Party seems to be more pro censorship, and the Republican Party is giving people the impression that they're pro free speech. Although I think this is just a partisan thing right now. Like right now, the president is a Democrat. You know, it could change if the president becomes a Republican. Do you feel like the Democratic Party has started to walk away from free speech?
I do. I'm depressed by that. I think it's tied to another phenomenon that's been kind of underreported, which is the change in the demographics of the Democratic Party. If you look at the 50 richest congressional districts, I think 41 of them are Democrats now. That number would have been more like 60-40 in the other direction in the early 90s. So the Democrats have become kind of the party of wealthier, urban, coastal voters, and I think you're right that the Republicans are being totally opportunistic about the speech issue. However, I'm not so sure that their voters are, because actual like working class people have always traditionally in the past been more insistent on their speech rights, and more vocal about it, than people in the upper class who believe that they maybe should be a vanguard for the rest of society. So the Trump voters who are bellowing about elites who are trying to censor their speech, that does make a little bit of political sense to me. But yeah, obviously it's very depressing because I grew up in a household that was very geared toward the speech issue. My mother was an attorney, and taught me a lot about civil liberties when I was a kid, and so obviously having a father in journalism, so it's been very depressing to see the turnaround on those issues, which is I don't know, what do you like, what's your take on that? Like why do you think that's happened in the last, or do you think it's happened?
I think it is happening. It's really sad. Like, I know we hear these talking points from Fox News, that the Democratic Party is moving further to the left. I disagree with that. I think the Democratic Party has actually moved further towards the right. Even when we look at issues like policing, like they have a lot of virtue signaling after these incidents happen of police brutality. But then at the end of the day, they say we're going to give more money to the police. So I feel like where are those revolutionary voices? Like, where is like an old school Angela Davis? Like, where is the Fred Hampton? Where is the Malcolm X? Like, I feel like we don't have those voices anymore. I also do feel like some people may be afraid to be that voice because a lot of our revolutionary heroes were assassinated, like, so to speak. So, and that's another thing that when we talk about the government agencies. Now more has come out about that. Like Malcolm X's family has announced that they filed a lawsuit against the FBI and the NYPD. These are things that I kind of felt did happen, but I didn't have evidence. And now there's evidence to prove that these government agencies killed our revolutionary leaders. So I think that people are afraid to have that voice today because they kind of see it as a death sentence, so to speak. And so I think that when those leaders were killed off, I think neoliberalism kind of came in and took hold of revolutionary fighters. And I think people started to think that the Democratic Party is going to be the one to save us instead of listening to what MLK said when he said, be wary, of those political leaders, that you have to fight on the outside.
Yeah, whenever they bring up MLK in the press, it's always the pre-1967 version of him, like before he turned anti-war and, before the Riverside speech and all that. Yeah, like, and the funny thing about this Twitter file stuff is that it's very similar to stories like the COINTELPRO story, Operation Mockingbird, where you had government, or the CIA family jewel story from the 1975, which was about government agencies being very concerned about sort of underclass rebellion and trying to figure out ways to conduct surveillance and to suppress the speech of those people. Obviously, back then, like, assassinating people like Fred Hampton is much more extreme than removing an account. But in the digital age, they have other ways of dealing with these movements, which are bloodless, but they're also scary, I think, in a different way. So it's depressing that people don't see that link.